Stop. All right. Hi, everyone. So, welcome back to another episode of Mindgasms. And this is going to be another one where I read another one of my novel chapters from my book called The Cold Darkness of the Night. And, all right. So, without further ado, I will start reading chapter 11 here. When the trunk of the car opened, Bill and Brian felt the heat of the sun bearing down on them. They heard 4 shotguns getting pumped almost simultaneously. Whoever their captors were, they were skilled and synchronized. They moved fluidly and worked together like an efficient machine. "Get out of the trunk!" the hitman heard a rough voice say with authority. They kept their eyes closed, attempting to convince the other criminals that they were still unconscious. Brian and Bill remained motionless, hoping that their kidnappers would approach the vehicle so they could seize their guns. They really wanted the other killers to be that fatuous and amateurish. Nothing seemed to happen for a few seconds. Then the 2 men heard barely discernible footsteps and instantly felt cold metal shotgun barrels being shoved into their necks. Both assassins audibly choked, their eyes flicking open in response to the enormous pressure. Their eyes started watering, and their faces and necks turned bright red. They sweated profusely as the flow of oxygen to their brains was aggressively cut off. "I have your attention now, don't I, motherfuckers?" the apparent leader of the group asked rhetorically. He stood 5 feet back from the trunk on Bill and Brian's right side. The 3 other captors wore ski masks, leather jackets, jeans, leather gloves, and hiking boots. All of their clothes were black, which matched the outfit of their leader. "We could hear you talking in the car, retards," the man in charge added in his rough, booming voice. He wasn't talking loudly. His speech had distinct power, and he had a commanding presence. The leader's frame was almost as huge as Brian's, in spite of his shorter height at 5'6". His legs were firmly planted at about shoulder width, and his arms were crossed. He wore aviator sunglasses, a camouflage muscle shirt, blue jeans, and old dark brown work boots. The man in charge had a mohawk and a goatee, both of which were jet black. He was trying to make himself look powerful and unique in every conceivable way. The speaker probably had a short man complex. It seemed like his whole appearance compensated for his lack of height. The mohawk made him look taller, the goatee made his face more distinctive, and the camouflage of his muscle shirt stood out. His large, muscular arms made him more eye-catching, especially since they were crossed, and pushed out his biceps. Even his stance exuded confidence, and the boots he wore helped enforce that persona. They were stereotypically masculine, and the slightly raised heels added to his height. "I said get the fuck out of the car!" he bellowed. As if they were ordered telepathically, the shotgun wielders pushed their weapons harder against Brian and Bill's throats. It hurt so much that the killers nearly blacked out again. They gritted their teeth, playing through the pain, and complied by moving to exit the trunk. As soon as they did this, the pressure on their throats eased up, reduced almost back to the original level. Brian felt warm beads of sweat rolling down his skin and dripping into the cold steel barrel. He glanced at Bill and saw the same thing happening with him. Each man moved slowly because the shotguns were pressed into their necks. The fingers of the assassins holding the weapons were on the triggers. So Brian and Bill didn't want to make sudden movements and cause the guns for hire to accidentally kill them. After Bill and Brian climbed out of the trunk, the leader of the group said, "Now follow," pointing to a thug to his right who was not holding a gun against their throats. The ski mask-clad assassin slowly walked past the car, heading to the right of Brian and Bill. The killers holding shotguns to their throats moved from in front of them and stood behind them. They shoved their weapons into the hitmen's backs as their partner led the way. Bill and Brian waited until their captors were in position and followed the assassin in front of them. They fully accepted the fact that these guys were professional and that they wouldn't be able to fuck with them. The killers holding shotguns to their throats moved from both prisoners came to a silent agreement that the best thing to do was comply. The group they were dealing with seemed to have no weaknesses and could anticipate any evasive or outsmarting maneuver. As Bill and Brian followed the assassin, they thought about the variety of illegal activities that could occur in a shipping yard. crimes that they had personally instigated. Thinking about the irony of their situation and unconsciously slowing down, their captors prodded them along with their guns. They took a final left turn before the killer leading the group stopped at the door of a shipping container. Stop. Nope. That actually should sound this way. Stop. She commanded as she turned around and trained her shotgun on each of them. Both hitmen were surprised that the woman's voice was female because women were rare in this line of work, but this didn't stop them from following her orders. The majority of people in this profession were men. There was no concrete reason, but many possibilities. Perhaps it was because guys are more inclined to be ruthless and violent than girls. This was an evolutionary trait from when men had to kill animals for food and protect their families from predators. It could have been because most men are bigger and stronger than women, or the fact that many guys have less emotional difficulty with stretching morals than girls could have been the main cause. As the prisoners waited, the leader came up to the doors where the woman stood. Without saying a word, he pulled open the door on the right side as she did so with the one on the left side. They stepped inside the shipping container, the woman flicking a switch. That turned on a small bulb in the middle of the ceiling. Other than the lone yellow light, the only objects in the room were two rusty metal chairs bolted to the floor and a steel cart displaying shiny metal torture tools. Fuck, Bill thought, sure that Brian's feelings mirrored his own. As they were shoved toward the chairs and ordered to sit, neither man displayed their emotional alarm. They knew that this would play into the hands of their soon-to-be torturers. Brian and Bill's thoughts were interrupted by the shotgun-wielding men binding their arms and feet to the chairs. They used handcuffs and thick nylon ropes. A black cloth bag was pulled over each of their heads while the weapons were removed from the backs of their necks. They heard the four assassins walk to the doors, switch off the light, and close the huge metal slabs with loud, invasive creaks. Brian and Bill were left with nothing but silence, darkness, and the smell of dust and stale mold. All right, so that is chapter 11 of my novel called The Cold Darkness of the Night. And you can watch all of my other chapters here on my YouTube channel, me reading the first 11 here. And I'll add the link for the playlist for all of those. And I'll also add the link to all of my chapters that I've written so far on my blog. I've written a lot more chapters. I have a lot more chapters there on my blog than what I've read here on my YouTube channel. And for those who don't know, The Cold Darkness of the Night, my novel, is about a guy who gets sucked back into a life of crime and working with killers when his daughter gets kidnapped. And he used to be a mob enforcer, but left the business, but gets sucked back in when his daughter gets kidnapped and slips right back in to being ruthless and violent. All right. So anyway, as always, thank you so much for everyone who has subscribed to my YouTube channel. And thank you so much for everyone who's contributed to me on Patreon. And also, thank you so fucking much to anyone else who subscribes to my YouTube channel and to anyone else who contributes to me on Patreon. That means a fuck of a lot to me. You have no idea how much I appreciate it. And also, of course, I love you all. Keep being the tiny beam of light that shines through the almost impenetrable darkness in the universe. And as always, most importantly, always remember this: the funk cures all. All right. Adios until next time. Awesome. Mom, please don't